I mostly see myself as a mother and a wife. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I'm Sally's mom, I'm Zoe's mom, I'm Bridger's stepmom, I'm Sawyer's stepmom, I'm Will's wife. Family is very important to me. So those are the most important roles that I have, that mean the most to me. And that doesn't mean that theater and performing doesn't mean a lot to me too. But as I've gotten older, and that life then feeds, the artistic life, so yeah, that's how I see myself. The idea of Audra McDonald, this person who's had this big sort of career, especially theatrically speaking, feels a bit. I don't know who that is. Do you know what I mean? I know what I do, but I don't experience that same version of myself, I think, as other people do. I think they probably have an idea of who I am, that I can't comment on because I don't live in that world. I look back on my career and I just feel so fortunate at everything that I've gotten to do. There's certain roles that when I finish them, I think, oh my gosh, I'm still standing. How am I still standing after doing that? Because I know how difficult it was. Lady Day is one of them that I just, living that day in and day out was one of the greatest challenges I've ever had theatrically. And I mean that in all sense of the word, of greatest. It felt great to do, but it was also an immense challenge. I felt very stretched as an artist. I felt like I grew. I felt like I evolved as an artist. And that, also that it killed me a little bit as an artist, just because it was such a deep, dark place to have to go to every night, So I guess that's one example. There are certain songs that are must to include, and that changes, depending on my mood, or I'll complain, to my incredible music director, Andy Einhorn. Some days I'm really in the mood to sing Climb Every Mountain, and so I'm like, we're doing it. I don't care if I've done it in this city 500 times, I'm doing it again. And then there are other days when Andy's like, let's add this one in tonight. I'm like, no, just don't have it in me, or I don't feel like I'm singing in the stratosphere today, So, but Climb Every Mountain is one that I have to be in a mood to do. But then when I'm in the mood, I'm really in the mood. Well, when I'm doing a concert, I'm very deliberate about where I program certain songs in the concert. What starts a concert? It's like a 7-course meal that I love. We like to liken it to. There's a certain thing you do as a starter. There's an opening. There's something that you do as a amuse-bouche. Then there's something you do as a main course. I mean, it's very deliberate where we put certain songs. And each song I treat as its own mini musical or play. There has to be a why for every single song I sing. There is in music theater, so for me, why wouldn't there be within concert? So sometimes I set up songs by speaking to the audience about them before I sing them, or I'll tell them why I've chosen this song, or what this song means to me, or I'll give them the background of where it comes in a certain, musical, what's happening with the character, and then I step into whatever that trajectory will be in that story and that character and that through line, so that there is a beginning and a middle and an end and an emotional trajectory throughout. That there is the why. I'm not one who's good at opening your mouth, sing beautifully just to sing beautifully. That unless the character is feeling that, I need a why. That's how I activate. I'll stay in whatever character, whether it's what's dictated or if it's a song that's, there's a lot of standards out there that, have a multitude of different, interpretations. And so I just have to make sure that I have mine set and what I'm doing and what I'm thinking in my trajectory throughout. But still, if you were to look at it, I guess, analytically, it's still a character and a trajectory and a journey. Well, I come from a very musical family, and both my grandmothers were piano teachers. All of my dad's sisters sang. My dad was a music teacher in high school, and he was the director of the high school jazz band. And so music was in our house, if not necessarily theater. And I was a very hyperactive child, and my parents were looking for ways in the 70s to sort of channel that hyperactivity and focus that energy that didn't include medication. They really didn't want to go the medication route. And, to each his own. And, how people choose to parent is how they choose to parent. What they choose for their children, that's a very individual choice. And my parents, Ritalin was also very new at that time. And so my parents just didn't want to go that route. And so they saw that there was this local dinner theater was having auditions, and they had gone to the local dinner theater a couple of times just to see some of the shows, and they had seen this junior company that would perform before the main stage show each night. And they said, maybe we'll have Audra go and audition for this, because she's got a great voice. She sings in the church choir. She's the loudest one in the church choir. And so they took me, and my dad played the piano for me for my audition, and I sang Edelweiss. And I got in, and that's where I started when I was 9, and I left there a month after I turned 18 to move to New York. I lived at that theater, I was a part of that theater for 9 years. I did their main stage shows. I did the junior company. A couple of summers I choreographed the junior company. Once I got to be too old to be in the junior company, I would choreograph. I went to Performing Arts Junior High School and to Performing Arts High School. So my love and my sort of baptism into the world of theater just was enormous. Yeah. And people who don't, people who make fun of Fresno, California, which is considered a very, farmer's town, in California, it was an incredible education. Yeah. So that by the time I got to New York, I understood what it meant to be in a show. I understood the discipline that was required. I understood, the etiquette of backstage and on stage, and that was my world. So, aside from the fact that it was New York and it was Broadway, not much of it was that different, because I had already been so deeply in it for so many years up until that point. I remember when I auditioned and got cast as Sharon in Masterclass opposite Zoe Caldwell, who I ended up naming my daughter after. About 6 months into the run, she said to me, you weren't a very good actress when you started. You were not very good, and now you're an actress. I loved her so much. She was such a mentor, and she was like a second mom to me, and just taught me so much about the world and art and theater. But the fact that she was still working on her craft, and at that point she was 67, she was still working on her craft, and that just meant everything to me. And that was like one of the heroes I had to look up to, and mentors, and inspiration of who I wanted to be as an artist. So I got a good training early on to keep going. Theater is theater wherever there is a performer and an audience. Don't judge the building, So if it means you're performing in a senior citizen's home, you're performing in a children's hospital, you're performing, as I was just telling another interviewer I used to do performances for prisoners who had AIDS in the late 80s and early 90s, incarcerated in a prison hospital. I would go and sing for them. And I learned as much about my craft and grew as an artist in those places as I did on a Broadway stage. So wherever the opportunity there is to get up in front of an audience and perform and share, take it. And work begets work. So don't be a snob and say, well, it must be on, the big professional stage or I won't do it. You won't learn that way.